Welcome to The Collaborative. I'm your host, Sydnee Walker. Today we are joined by Arielle Chambers. She is a multimedia journalist, host, and women's sports and culture amplifier. In early 2019, she founded Bleacher Report's women's platform, HighlightHER, and has grown it from the very beginning to now over 240,000 Instagram followers and counting. Ari has since dedicated her efforts to grassroots coverage and the utilization of social media to close the coverage gap. She coined the phrase, "The WNBA is so important," which became Twitter Sports' WNBA 25th anniversary campaign. She has been a reporter for the WNBA and NCAA women's basketball, covering multiple WNBA All-Star games, NCAA women's Final Fours, and ACC women's basketball tournaments. Welcome.
Oh, thanks.
First up, we have Sid's This or That Summer Edition. I'll give you a few options and you'll tell me your preference and why. So first we have travel or staycation.
Oh, staycation. I travel for work, girl. It's time to be at home and in peace, just staying right where you are.
I agree with you. A good staycation.
It doesn't hurt that I'm like in New York too. Like, let's be honest.
You have plenty to do.
Yeah.
Ocean or pool?
Ocean. My name is Arielle and I'm a Pisces. So I'm like a mermaid.
I love it. I'm a Pisces too.
Hey, shout out Pisces. What day?
February 25th.
Okay, I'm a March Pisces, March 14th, Pi Day.
Sweet tea or lemonade?
Sweet tea from North Carolina.
I'm going with Arnold Palmer. I love both of them, so that's
Not you having both. The girl said both.
And last but not least, barbecue or picnic?
I'm okay. I'm gonna go with barbecue on the grill and then take that thing to a park. Okay, there's that.
Thank you for answering those. To kick things off, let's talk about your love for sports. You grew up as a cheerleader, eventually cheering for NC State and also professionally. When did you realize there was an opportunity for you to work in sports as a career?
I realized there was the opportunity for me to work in sports when I was in elementary school because my elementary school went to the NC State women's basketball games, and I saw Coach K Yao there, and she was the head coach of the team at the time. And so I knew that we could hold the highest position in sports. And from there, my passion was nurtured, and I actually quit cheerleading in high school to be the girls' basketball manager, and I played volleyball in the off season. But just knowing that there was always space to be within the women's game was always my goal. And I saw it at a young age, so I knew I could do it.
I love the answer. It's great that you knew from an early age and just seeing that representation growing
I was one of the lucky ones, being in North Carolina, which is a basketball state, and just having K.L. and Sylvia Hatchell. Then you go down the street to Charlotte for Dawn Staley, who's playing for the Charlotte Sting at the time. That was really cool.
Absolutely. So you come from a journalism background, and when going into this profession, you can be asked to do numerous things, including writing, producing, and interviewing. What's one skill you learned in college that has helped you the most throughout your career?
The time management of it all. So we talk a lot about how you need so many different skill sets to be a journalist. I think the biggest skill set you learn from how to be a journalist is listening. People undermine that, but from college and in having to juggle being an athlete and covering sports and I modeled at the time, so flying back and forth to New York, I had to learn time management. And so when you have a mixed media journalist like myself, I know how to manage social media. I have to anchor shows. I know that I have to, be guests on panels. I know that I have to do my long form content. I know that I have to write. And so it's different things that I have to manage my time. And that's something that I acquired in my late teens and early 20s.
I like how you touched on the listening aspect, because I feel like it goes unnoticed, because a lot of times people will be interviewing athletes and they're not even listening to what they say.
Which is wild, because what are y'all trying to do?
Exactly. So you founded HighlightHER, which is a platform under the Bleacher Report umbrella dedicated to amplifying women's sports. In a previous interview, you mentioned that if you're going to make it mainstream, then you have to make all women's sports mainstream. How do you approach prepping for a sport you're new to or may not have as much knowledge about?
The second you stop learning is the second you stop growing. So if I don't know something, I'm going to research it. It's something you learn in school again about if something is your goal. So say I'm going into, I just finished something with Team USA with water polo. Girl, I ain't seen that near water polo meet in my life, right? So I had to go and do the research and really know who I'm about to sit down with and know, like, watch former interviews with them and see what makes them tick. And even if you don't want to approach it that way, because a lot of times I don't, um, be willing to learn. Ask the subject, hey, what is it? Why water polo? What is it about your sport that we should know? How me as a journalist, how can I share your story? How can I spread it in the way you want? What direction do you want to take? Be willing to listen and be willing to learn. So research like every other thing. Watch film. If you're an analyst, I would suggest you look into getting your books and fill out those books. And it's an easy reference so you can go along with the game and just look down at a large number and like say, hey, this is the fact about this player that I want to do. There are different methods to quickly learn things and to have it resonate with you, but figure out what works for you. For me, it's film. For me, it's having my books filled out.
I feel like sometimes those sports you know nothing about end up being the most fun.
Yeah, and then you learn. Like, I know basketball like the back of my hand. Nobody can check me about the WNBA. That is something that I'm encyclopedic about. But to be able to go into water polo, to be able to go into the softball space, I'm learning, and it's just new and exciting, and so I can approach it in a fresh way, and it helps grow the sport. And so whatever little building block I can be to help push their sport forward is special to me.
That is so true. And I remember when I was in college working at the school TV station, and some people didn't really want to sign up to cover women's volleyball or women's softball. Then you get there and it's like, this is really fun. Everyone's amped up about it. They're teaching you stuff you may not know. So it just ends up being a really neat environment. And transitioning into the WNBA, that's your first love, where you coined the phrase, the WNBA is so important. We've now seen that phrase gain global recognition. From your perspective, what are you most proud of in terms of the growth we've seen within the W over the years?
I'm proud of people realizing it's not a charity and the game is the game. So people are supporting women's sports because they love it. I want to get out of the whole support women's sports thing and just saying engage with women's sports, or be present, watch the game, watch women's sports, because it's not a charity to support it. Does that make sense? So it should be mainstream that women occupy these spaces in an athletic way, and so it shouldn't be taken as I'm doing the greater good of society by consuming this dope game.
Absolutely, you've done a great job with that, and I think we're starting to see more and people catch on. So hopefully, it's just like you said, people are just engaged with it and not a community case.
Thank you.
So transitioning to work-life balance. Obviously, you're very busy today and you have an amazing schedule, but it's always important to practice self-care. What are some ways you decompress in order to avoid burnout?
I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I don't know yet, and I'm still learning. I have manufactured energy through caffeine, and that is what it is. But I do know the things that make me happy outside of sport, and I pour into them when I do feel at my breaking point. I love my dog. I love going on walks with my dog. I love long distance running. And so whenever I can run 10 miles, I feel happy. Whenever I could take a dance class, I feel happy because it connects me to my roots. Dance is my roots, cheerleading roots. And so whenever I can get out of a space of coverage, I will do that. And little things along the way that make me happy. So for example, because I'm national media now, I don't need to do beat reporting. So instead of going to the Liberty games as media, I bought season tickets. So things like that, the small shifts in the way I function and go through everyday life are helping me find balance so that I can, in a couple years, tell y'all how to find that yourselves. But little things, little steps along the way.
Yeah, thank you for being honest. I think it's good for everyone.
It can only be me, girl. It can only be me.
Yeah. And lastly, looking at your career thus far, you've been extremely successful while remaining true to yourself. What advice do you have for our community of students and young professionals who are looking to make their mark within this industry?
Find something that's missing within the industry. Find something that's missing and occupy that space. Find the blank space. Because if not, sports especially is such an oversaturated area. And so I just want to make sure that when you do look for a career in the future, or when you do look to join an organization, you're bringing something innovative and something new and something disruptive to the table.
I like that. Be a disruptor in this industry. That's very important. All right. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with us today. We really appreciate everything you're doing for women's sports, all the work you're doing. So thank you so much for sharing your advice and stories. We really appreciate it.
Anytime, my loves, anytime.